All right, what's up, everybody? Today, we are starting a podcast.
Very first one for me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty stoked about that.
This is episode numero uno.
Yes.
And we decided we're going to talk about our first deals that we ever got into as real estate investors to kind of help you people at home realize how easy it really is when we didn't know anything, how we got started. But before we get into that, Matt, I've done about 15 deals now with you since I've known you, and I've known you now about 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm really jealous because you just bought a Tesla, and yeah, that's my next purchase. I might buy one today, actually.
Always copying me.
I'd have to wait for it to get
copying me.
But Matt, tell us a little bit about how you got started and how many deals you've done, and maybe what your most profitable deal you ever did was.
Yeah, so I guess I've been doing it for over 4 years now. Holy moly, it's gone by really quick. But yeah, just about 4 years now, a little bit over, and then I have done quite a bit. Started off really slow, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit, about how I got into my first deal and how long that took. But yeah, I've done a lot of flips. I think over 60 now. I've done real estate transactions. I own rental properties, I wholesale. There's quite a bit I do within real estate, but my main thing that we do is flips in my business. And so we've been focusing on that for the last 4 years. Done a lot of that, absolutely love it.
Sweet.
A lot of fun. And then Allan here has been an amazing real estate agent for like 9 years, so much experience, and he's done how many deals?
I have no idea.
A lot.
A ton. I know I've probably done over 100. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It's a lot of real estate transactions.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
Yeah. But I think that at least my most profitable deal I actually did with you.
Yeah.
Which was last year, a house that we did on the east side.
Good old Foothill.
Single family home.
That's our area. Don't go there. We love it.
Yeah, we flipped that. It took us about, 5 months?
Yeah, about 5-6 months.
We bought it for was it $375 or $475?
I think it was $475.
Yeah.
Sold it $800.
Little over $800.
No realtor fees, because you found, with your experience, you found the buyer, which was insane.
Yeah.
That never happens.
Yeah.
And then we saved like $1 gazillion.
We saved like $25,000 for them not having an agent. So.
And then 6 months worth of work, I think we netted like $155,000.
Yeah.
Off of that one deal. And your dollar per hour was a little bit higher because I felt like I did more of the.
Yeah, you
I'm
did.
just kidding. But that was like thousands of dollars per hour for both.
Yeah, that was a great flip.
That was a fun day.
And then we just flipped one. We just closed one last week where I think we made 85, didn't we?
85, yeah.
That we split.
So we've had some pretty good ones.
Yeah.
Been a lot of
fun. Let's get into what we want to talk about today, which is how you at home can get into your first real estate deal.
We're going to show you that if we can do it, if Allan can do it, then you guys can do it.
It's true. It's very true.
So true.
So tell us, why don't we start with you?
Yeah.
Tell us about your very first deal, how you found it, how you funded it, and how much money did you make?
Yeah, so I found it through a very weird way. I found it through Craigslist. Believe it or not, there's like 50 different ways to find deals. I mean, you know that, but one of the only times that I actually found one off of just Craigslist was in the beginning. I didn't know how to find deals that great, but I knew that people were listing homes off of Craigslist, and I was like, okay.
Dude, I'm gonna stop you real quick. This is just so funny. I never even thought about looking on Craigslist for a real estate deal. That's how you found your first deal. That's awesome.
And that's not even my only one off of Craigslist. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, people, they don't want to pay agents. They just don't go about it the right way. They just want to list it themselves and negotiate themselves. So they throw it up on KSL, Craigslist. And so being broke, having no money for marketing, advertisement, decided that I'm going to sit on Craigslist every day. Awesome. And I think after 2 weeks, I finally found somebody that was advertising their home and said, hey, we're looking for a quick close. Called them up, negotiated a price, which wasn't good enough, but then I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need a partner. And that's where I actually connected with another real estate investor in a local networking group, which I highly suggest you guys out there go to all of the local networking groups, connect with people, so that way if you find something, you can start partnering up with other people, and most people do that. And so I partnered up with a buddy of mine that I met through a networking group, and he actually brought the money. I think he used some of his own money, a lot of hard money loan, some of his own funds, and then and what I didn't know back then is I shouldn't have done this, but I negotiated a flat rate for this deal, and that ended up being a big mistake.
Sure. So you found the deal on Craigslist? Someone just had listed it on Craigslist, like for sale?
So they were in foreclosure, right? So they had like 4 or 5 months behind. They were going to lose the house. They knew this, and so they were like, last resort, I'm just going to, instead of calling a realtor, negotiating with the bank, which would have been, I think, better steps for this guy, he went to Craigslist and just posted a couple pictures of his house, said for sale. It said something along the lines of, needing quick close, desperate, something like that. All of the words that you shouldn't be saying when you list a home.
Yeah.
Don't put the word desperate in your listing. That is not the direction you should be going. And so,
but if you're looking to buy, that's a great tell sign that, hey, this person is willing to negotiate.
Yes, desperate is definitely a great keyword to look. You're not going to see it very much, but if you do, that's a great one to call out.
Yeah.
And so that was he's kind of in a bad situation. And I was actually able to negotiate at the time. I didn't know exactly what this meant, but I knew to negotiate seller finance.
Okay.
And so I was able to negotiate him to give us the house.
Did you go out to the house yourself and look at it, or did you call your partner first and have them go out and look at it together?
I actually went out myself and then saw the house, took pictures, negotiated a price with him, tried to negotiate seller finance, didn't really make sense. I don't think he really understood it, but I got the information so that when I called the partner, I knew that this could be a potential deal, and that if he asked me any question, I was able to answer his question so that he felt comfortable enough to not waste his time to go out and see the property.
Okay. So from the moment you started your real estate kind of education to this moment where you're now negotiating your first deal, how many months are we looking at?
Too many. I think I had a lot going on, so I wasn't putting enough time into it, but I think it was about 4 months in when I found this deal, negotiated and got it started. So it took me about 4.5 months.
To kind of learn the lingo, to kind of learn what seller financing is.
Enough to know what to look for.
Okay.
Because the hardest part is just knowing what to look for, because the deals are out there. It's just knowing what you're doing.
And did you do the comps yourself, or?
I tried, and when I brought it to my partner, I realized the comps were a little bit off. And he brought ones that were more applicable to this house.
Were you like high or low?
I think I was thinking the deal was, I thought it was actually worse than it actually was.
Oh, okay.
We ended up making more money, but I honestly didn't know what I was doing.
So it was good that you brought it to the partner.
I think it was key that I did, because I did not know what I had.
Okay.
And he was able to negotiate it to be even better. He was able to explain the terms of seller finance to make the person feel comfortable, to let us sell us the house subject to the existing mortgage.
Cool. And was it a single family house?
Single family in Sandy, right off the freeway on the east side. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, kind of that split entry, like that really basic model that's like 80% of homes and in Utah, it feels like.
Yeah.
And 2-car covered garage.
And you bought it for how much, do you remember?
Oh man, we bought it, I think it was in the mid 200s.
Okay.
But this was, almost 4.5 years ago, whereas now this home would be like 300. But it was a little bit trashed. It wasn't super ugly, but it was distressed in the fact that it didn't, the carpets were worn and the paint was falling off. They kept their dogs in a room, and that room was just disgusting, full of poop, just like normal that we buy. And we ended up,
So let me just kind of peel back. So you started learning about real estate. About 4 months into your real estate education, you found a deal off Craigslist.
Yes.
You went to the house, you talked to the owner, You probably called the number off Craigslist.
Called it, set up an appointment, went and saw the house.
Then you did kind of your own comps.
Tried my best to figure out if this is a deal or not. Gathered all the information I thought I needed.
Then you called your partner and said, hey, I think I have a deal. He looked at it. He gave his new comps. Then he decided to set up an appointment with the seller, and you guys both went there.
We went together, and I just sat there and watched. I think that was a good thing for me to do, is just don't talk. Let the person who knows more do it, and just pay attention. And I just studied my butt off.
Awesome. And so then you got put under contract. Now, the next step everybody probably wants to know is, how did you fund this deal? How did you find the money to get into your first deal?
There are so many ways to fund real estate. It's kind of insane how much money is floating out there that you can just use. But he ended up using a hard money lender, a combination of hard money and then a little bit of his own money to fill in the rehab and some of that gap funding, because hard money lenders don't typically lend 100% of the purchase typically. And so he came in with all of the rest of his own money and funded the rehab and all of that.
So you found part of it through a hard money lender, and then your partner actually funded the rest.
Yep.
Okay, great. So so you go under contract, he funds the deal through, and where did you find your hard money lender?
I think he found it through another person in the network, someone that he'd been working with for a while. And the same place I find most of my lenders is just through networking with people within your area is a great way.
Okay, so then you purchased the house. Now, does he do most of the rehab, or are you working on it?
Dude, I was thinking, okay, this guy's experienced. He knows what he's doing. He's going to come in, and I'm just going to watch.
Yeah.
And I realized that was the exact opposite of his plan. And so I realized he just says, you're in charge, go for it. And I'm just sitting there not knowing what to do, frustrated that I'm not getting help, which I think in hindsight ended up being really great because I had to learn on my feet and just figure it out.
Yeah.
But I was the one managing the contractor, telling them what finishes to do, what to do, negotiating, how much it's going to cost and all of that. Eventually it got approved through him, and he said, okay, that sounds great. But
you were doing most of the work.
I was going there 3-4 times a week, asking questions, figuring it out.
Kind of got thrown into the fire.
Oh yeah, it was a rough time. I was barely sleeping the whole time, not knowing how this was going to go. Yeah. It was really nerve-wracking. It was tough, but I was glad that I managed it, because I learned a lot on that deal.
So you learned a lot, obviously, just getting thrown into the fire. So maybe it was stressful at the time, but it was probably a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I think I ended up real happy that I had to learn so much, because that learning curve helped me get into doing my own deals a lot quicker.
Cool.
Because I never suggest someone first deal, do it completely on your own, or maybe even the second. You really need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, at least you have a fallback.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then, so tell us then, you rehabbed it. How much was your rehab?
I think it was around $35,000, $40,000 is about where we were at.
And then you sold it, and how much did you make?
We ended up netting, I think, around 50 on that deal. I actually got a lot less than that. I think I ended up getting like 7,000 or 8,000 of that.
Right.
Because of what I negotiated at the beginning, which,
because you didn't know what you were...
Didn't know, and the guy that knew what he was doing kind of knew what he had, so we negotiated a flat rate no matter how it went. I was going to get...
So he negotiated better than you did.
He did. He knew more than me.
That typically happens on your first deal,
right? He knew more than me, yeah. So he was a great negotiator, got me down to 7,000. But, I was still happy at the time because I had a great learning experience, because I learned a ton.
Yeah.
And for me, 7,000, it was a lot of money back then. Yeah. For the amount of time that I put into it, it's still like over $60, $50 an hour, which is still at the time
way better than what you were making.
the time was way better.
Were you an employee? What were you doing at the time?
I was just graduated school, and I did not have a job. So to make $7,000 in the course of like...
You were unemployed.
Unemployed. So 7,000 4 months was not the worst thing at the time, but the experience was great. The learning, and I really took advantage of that experience to catapult me into the second, third, fourth deal.
Sweet. That's an awesome story.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster, but honestly, the greatest decision I made was to take action.
Yeah.
And that's where some people they just don't take enough action, and just their fear holds them back. Me taking action was the reason I am here today, is just take that first action.
That is awesome. Cool.
All right,
man.
Allan's turn. I want to hear Allan's first deal because I'm sure it's just as exciting and crazy as mine. So,
Yeah.
First deal, where was it?
Okay, so this deal came to me through an email. I'd learned enough about wholesalers. I found it through a wholesaler.
Did you know that as a realtor, or did you learn that becoming an investor?
So I actually had been on a few wholesale lists. I don't even know how. Oh no, I remember. I went to a wholesale meetup group like 3 years before.
Okay.
And someone had asked me to go, and I said, okay, fine. But I was a realtor, and when I went there, I didn't know what they were talking about. I was so confused.
Yeah.
I was like, how does this even work?
So you're saying realtors don't know everything about real estate?
In fact, they probably know very little compared to what's out there to know.
Yeah.
So I went to this wholesale group, and I was so confused. It was a bunch of investors, and they were talking about funding deals and finding deals, and I had no idea why anybody would sell their house at a discount. Like, didn't make any sense to me. I was like, well, why didn't they just get a realtor, and they could have sold it for a lot more, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was completely confused, but somehow when I left that meeting, I had put my email down on a piece of paper, and I got onto a bunch of wholesalers lists. Like, I think I started getting 3 or 4 emails from different wholesalers because I put my name on that list. And so over the next 2 years or so, I'd get these emails that would come in weekly, and I'd look at them and go, and I remember the email would always say, for cash buyers only. And I thought, man, I don't have that much cash. Like, how in the world would I even buy this house? Like, I can't, I could get a loan maybe, but how in the world would anybody buy this with cash? So it was using too much of my mental bandwidth to put any more effort into that. And so I just allowed those emails to just come, and I deleted them.
And we find that to be pretty common, where people and we even thought this, the biggest struggle in the beginning is money.
Yeah.
Like, we all think that that's going to be the biggest hurdle in these things is the money, right?
Yeah. So exactly. So it just was too much to bite off, and I just kind of ignored those emails. Every once in a while I'd click on one and be like, oh, that's a cool house. But then that's about the extent of where I would go with it, right? So then flash forward about 2 or 3 years later, I discovered the investor group that I met you at, and they were talking more about what to do and how to use other people's money and how to find deals. And I just remembered, oh my gosh, like, I have all those wholesale emails that I've been getting. I should look through those and see if I can find a deal now that I know somebody who can bring money to the table.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I just started scouring those emails, going back and looking at some old ones and some new ones, and calling the wholesalers, asking if they had sold the property yet. Had some awkward conversations at the beginning, but that was okay because I was still talking to them as a realtor would talk to them, and not as an investor would talk to them. And so some of them, and I'd call on really old wholesales from like 4 months earlier, and they were like, yeah, I sold that a long time ago. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Those don't last very long.
Yeah, so I did get one wholesale that was kind of, I tried to get a few deals, but they were going too quickly. It was really difficult at first. But then I saw one that popped up in Ogden, and it was far enough away from the main city that I thought, the most of my competition is going to be in this main area here. This one would probably be worth going and looking at. So I drove all the way up north of Ogden and looked at this property, met the actual wholesaler at the property. He was holding an open house, and started talking to him. And I actually was very honest with him. I said, hey, look, I've been an agent for a while, but I've never bought a house through a wholesaler. And I asked him at the property, I said, what would you suggest, right? Like, I like the house. I think I can get the money. And I just started asking him questions, and we kind of built this kind of rapport at the house. And he didn't look at me as someone to take advantage of as much as because I still had some real estate background. So and he even explained he was a realtor as well, and he had gotten into investing, and so we kind of had that to kind of bond our relationship a little bit. And I said, okay, I'm going to send an offer. And I even asked him, how do you want me to send in this offer? Because
a rep seat, you want me to sign the whole thing?
And he's like, no, he laughed, and he said, just send me a text message. I'm like, really? Just a text message? And he's like, yeah, just send me a text message and say what your offer is.
And now we're doing like 6 a day, and we're just texting people, and it's very different now.
So I went home that night, ran my comps again, and I remember there was this thing that I learned as a real estate agent called an escalation clause, which was...
So you sent a wholesaler an escalation clause?
I did.
Oh, that's funny.
I sent a wholesaler an escalation clause in a text message.
Yeah.
As my, and so I said, I ended up buying it at... I ended up buying it at $130,000.
It's hard. It's almost impossible to get a house at 130. So
yeah, and this was only 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so...
So small house then.
Really small. It was a 1,300, it was actually 1,300 square feet. It had 3 bedrooms.
Okay, so not like tiny, but pretty small.
Yeah, no, I had 2 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms.
Okay.
But they had listed it at 100 and, I want to say 20, maybe 120. But I did my comps and I was like, I think I could sell this around 200 with maybe 30,000 in repair. And I didn't know anything about construction or anything like that, so I was just kind of making big guesses. But I sent in an escalation clause and said, I'll pay $130,000, but I'll beat anybody's price by $1,000 up to $135,000.
Okay.
And the wholesaler called me the next day and said, you got it at $130,000.
Wow, so he was honest. So
he was honest.
Hey, I got 134. You need to come up to 135.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of that too is that I'd built that relationship with him at the house, and kind of was asking him questions, and so it ended up. I ended up, as soon as he said I got it, I started freaking out.
As we all do on our first deal.
So I called up my partner, the guy I wanted to partner with, and said, hey, I think I have a deal under contract. I know I have a deal under contract. Now can you really bring the money?
Yeah.
I was worried that he wasn't actually going to be able to bring the money. He's like, yeah, I can have it wired in a week.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, dude, I've got it.
Yeah.
And I said,
so was he asking earnest money, the wholesaler?
So yeah, he asked for earnest money, and I didn't have much money in my account, but I was able to pony up the earnest money, which I think I put down as like $1,000.
Only because typically they're doing 5,000
right
nowadays, and so.
And I may have. It was between 1,000 and 5,000. I've done more now, but I think it was $1,000. So I was able to at least afford to put down the earnest money. But the cool thing is that when we funded, I was going to get the rehab money in my account, so I could reimburse
yourself,
for that.
So essentially, you did it no money out of pocket.
Exactly. Yeah. So that $1,000 only was out of my account for 7 days or something, maybe even less than that. So.
Yeah.
So what happened is the guy, I ran my comps over and over and over and over again once I went under contract, just to make sure that I wasn't doing something stupid.
How much sleep did you get that night?
Not very much at all.
I
didn't sleep at all that first night.
The whole night?
I was wide awake.
Wow.
And I almost backed out because I was like, maybe I'm doing this wrong.
Yeah.
Like I just had so much self-doubt. But it's a good thing I had that partner, because he kind of just, every time I talked to him about my self-doubts, he'd laugh and say, dude, this is a good deal. This is a great deal. So let's do it together. And we did a 50-50 split on...
So you negotiated better than I did, which was great.
Yeah, we did a 50-50 split on the equity at the end. But he kind of did the same thing that you experienced, where once we bought the property, and at that point, from there on out, I just kind of watched and learned with the title company, with the way that he wired in the money, with the way that he wrote up the notes and all that stuff. And it's a good thing I didn't have to, because that would have been too much for my brain to handle at that point. Yeah. Like I was just worried about my little section.
You're going on 0 hours of sleep, so that's just, it's going to kill you right there.
Yeah. So we ended up closing the deal, and I had the money wired to my account, so I had the freedom to hire the contractors that I wanted and to kind of manage the whole rehab. And luckily I had a contractor that I'd used as a real estate agent, and I just called him up and said, hey, can you give me a bid? How much do you think this is going to cost? How fast can you get it done? And of course, it went over budget.
As they all do.
And it took longer than we thought.
As they all do.
But at the end of the day, in fact, this was my very first deal. I even called my parents and said, I got my first real estate investment deal. Do you guys want to help me with the yard? and they were more than happy to. They actually drove up to Ogden. They did an
Good old
awesome
family.
job on the front yard.
So can we use them for this flip we're doing tomorrow then?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll show you guys pictures on. I'll show you some before and after pictures, so you can see what it looks like. But yeah, we bought it for. So we final numbers were we bought it for 130. We put about 30 to 35,000 in rehab in, and we ended up selling it at 200.
200, okay.
So we made about $32,000 on my first
After closing
deal.
costs and everything. So you guys netted. So you're taking home almost 17,
Yeah.
16,000.
Yeah, and I negotiated that I would sell the house with a 1%
so you
commission
made some
as a
money as an
realtor.
agent,
So I
okay.
even made a teeny bit on top
Yeah.
of it. So that was my first deal. And I'll tell you this, when you make money on your first deal, it just gets you the gears going, right? Like after that, I was like, really? Like this is, I just made $16,000, $17,000, which would have taken me at least, I was only making at that time around $50,000 a year.
Yeah,
and I had
so
just made about $16,000, $17,000 in.
That's like life-changing money at that point.
Yeah, and I just thought, hey, if I can do multiple of these at the same time and just compound that, like the sky's the limit. And that's exactly what I did.
And you've done how many at one time now?
So the most I've done is about 8 deals at one time.
Which is a lot.
And I made, last year I remember I had a moment in my life that it was like one of those moments that you just remember, right? It's those postmark moments. And I made in 1 week more than I'd in my entire life ever made in a year.
Wow. And that's why we do this.
And that's why we do this. So that was my first deal.
Yeah.
Matt, thanks for sharing your first deal. Is this possible?
Yes, if we can do it, you can do it. I feel like that should be
Absolutely.
like our new slogan. If people watch us and they know that we can do it, they can do it.
Absolutely. And now I'm gonna go order my Tesla. So
Do it. We're gonna race.
Awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. There's gonna be much more to come.
More to come.
If you like this video, subscribe and hit the notification bell. All right.
Here.
Bam.